Hello, gorgeous heartbeat, and welcome to Heartbeats Harbor. I'm your host, Brianna Hozak, and I'm here to shine the light on the shadow path we walk as heartbeat women. Women rising into leadership roles as lightworkers, changemakers, worldshakers, or as I call us, heartbeats, do not have an easy path to walk. It often feels lonely, painful, and unique, but I'm here to help you see how very not alone you are, and how beautiful the shadows surrounding you actually are when you love and integrate them on your healing journey. I create spaces and opportunities for women to step into deeper self-awareness, self-acceptance, and personal healing, community and sacred circles, as well as leadership of themselves, their families, their communities, and beyond. My business and my life is and always will be about massive change in the ways things are done around the world. I believe it's a big part of my purpose on this planet to be a voice for those who don't have one, a safe harbor for those who need one, and a beacon of light to inspire a better way. None of this is easy. I've learned that big impact requires bold action and delusional levels of confidence, as well as a ton of shadow work. If you love what you hear on this podcast and you want to be part of the growing, supportive online village of Heartbeats Harbor, make sure you join my Facebook group, which is linked below in the show notes. Now, I can't wait to get started, so let's turn on the lights.
Hey, heartbeats. Today I really want to talk about this whole concept of the balance between the divine feminine and the divine masculine, or between the masculine and feminine energies, and all the different ways that it's phrased so often online. And the reason that I want to talk about it, I'm going to lead with an example from my own life, just because it's been very apparent today. It's been very intense today. And I know that it's something that so many of the women in my audience struggle with. So I want to just draw attention to it. Maybe bring some clarity for someone around this. But the way that I was existing before I came onto my spiritual awakening path, I was very much in masculine mode. And so many of us are, because, especially coming from corporate jobs and coming from patriarchal religions and families and everything, we have been dominated by masculine energies. And I'm not saying divine masculine for a reason, because there are a lot of toxic masculine energies. And the masculine energies can be really, really fantastic. They can be the structure that is needed, that supports the feminine flow. They can be the drive to complete things when we just don't feel very motivated, things like that. And it's great to lean into our energy and not overexert ourselves if we really don't have the energy to do something. But sometimes we're just not motivated and we really should be doing something. So it has all of these positives too. And the perspective coming from a patriarchal society, a patriarchal based religion, and the corporate world, the mindset that I came into this path with was do, go, achieve. And it's not necessarily, it's not that in and of itself is bad, but because it's the only way and there's no back and forth and shift into different energy where we can then restore ourselves after pushing so hard, or even magically find the balance in between, where we don't need to ever really push so hard or ever really release all motivation either. Like we can be somewhere in the middle. So, okay, to get myself on track here. So I came from that background of go, 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 do, 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 achieve, achieve, achieve. And I knew logically, that I was not taking the best care of myself. And when I talked about self-care, it was like, get enough sleep at night and drink enough water and all of these kinds of things. Um, and the extra fluffy layers like baths and spa and, like things like that. But, what I didn't include was self-care that was not required, and not frilly. So, and actually, I have to change that. It isn't that it's not required, it's that it isn't perceived as being required. So, self-care like doing nothing, like allowing ourselves to play, like shutting down and staring at the wall or watching TV or coloring or whatever it is for you, but the things that really restore your energy and just getting enough sleep and the physical needs for your body, the water, the nutrition, the exercise, all of that isn't enough to really fill up your emotional cup. So spending time with friends, having a community and a network around you that makes you feel loved and accepted and whole. There's so many pieces of it that don't get talked about enough. And anyways, I came from this mindset, and I know that so many of us do. And I then fell onto my spiritual awakening path and had to start learning to experience and trust in and act in divine feminine, or even just feminine at all, feminine flow. I really, really struggled with that. I had a very hard time turning off the crazy high expectations of myself and of others. I had a really hard time turning off the demanding pace, the over extended version of planning and structure and all of it. And what ended up happening was, as I fell onto that feminine flow and experienced it finally and thought, like, wow, how amazing, right? This is incredible. This feels amazing. People should be doing this, like all of those things when you first come into this. It was fantastic. And what ended up happening was that the pendulum swung from way too far on one side to way too far on the other side. And I struggled for a really long time. For most of my 2 years of dark night of the soul type energy, I struggled to get out of the flow. And as crazy as that sounds, it sounds like, oh, that should be a good thing, but I had no structure. And it just was like, I was so resistant to bringing back in that structure because I had literally traumatized myself with it, and been traumatized by it, being imposed on me my whole life kind of thing. And that it literally was that I actually had trauma from it. And most of us do, to the point where I completely blocked out my masculine side at all. And again, for anyone who doesn't know, we all have feminine and masculine energies. And this has nothing to do with sexuality or gender whatsoever. This is purely energetic. And yeah, so we all have these. And for most of my life, I had shut down the feminine. I had blocked out my girly side. I had blocked my intuition. I had turned off my gifts, my spiritual gifts, my claircognizance, my clairaudience, my um clairvoyance, like all of the different gifts that I have and had, which some of them I haven't even been able to unlock yet because I blocked them so thoroughly. Um, I turned off anything that could have been considered feminine and flowy and intuitive and especially anything girly, anything pink, anything frilly, anything, all of those types of things. So I really, really went down this masculine path, and I had thoughts like, I wish I had been born a boy. And it wasn't that I was a boy in a girl's body. It wasn't a transgendered thing or anything like that. It was just that I felt jealous of how accepted the boys in my life were for the way that they were versus how unaccepted I was for being a female. So, or at least how I perceived being unaccepted, right? So, not to say that I actually was, because there's absolutely misconceptions, especially in childhood. We don't have a full understanding and we get our own ideas and we stew on them alone, and um, they become bigger sometimes than they actually were, and all of it. So, this is not even a thing to say like the way that I was raised was wrong or anything. There's just this, and not to say that it's perfect either, but just this is what my perception was as a kid. And I got it into my head that it wasn't a good thing to be a girl, that it sucked being a girl, and I wished I was a boy. And um I turned off anything remotely feminine in myself. And so I was so extremely in that masculine that it was very much the toxic masculine. Um and the overachieving and the way too high expectations and the beating myself up over the perceived failures that were not even failures because I was achieving and accomplishing so much. Um, and anyway, so I went from that into this, and then I flipped to the complete other side and was like, no, I'm spiritual now. And I mean, I didn't have these thoughts, but it was basically like this, that I was like, I'm spiritual now. I'm leaning into my feminine flow. I don't need that shit. And I just kind of pushed away all of the masculine, and I went to the complete other extreme, and I actually completely kicked my masculine energy out of my body. There was a struggle for, it was almost a full year to even allow my masculine energy back in at all. And because I had none of it, I had none of that masculine energy, none of that structure, none of the drive and motivation that comes with it and all of that, I was not making it. I was not succeeding with most of my endeavors because I was getting the intuitions and I was getting the inspiration in that sense, and I was trying to flow with my energy, but my energy was stuck in one spot and it wasn't flowing back and forth and mixing that feminine and masculine, those different pieces that can actually be so supportive of each other. So anyways, I went into this complete other side. And like I said, it took almost a year for me to allow the masculine back in at all, because of all those traumas, and to work through that shadow work and to heal from all of that, and to remember and rediscover, and in some cases, completely discover for the first time, because I had never understood the healthy masculine pieces, and knowing which pieces were safe to bring back in and which ones were actually beneficial that I had been denying myself, and so on. So I finally did accomplish that, and actually I can't remember how long it's been exactly. The last few months have felt sort of like several years all crammed into a really short period of time. But I think it was about a couple of months ago, um, where I had the realization that I had finally brought the masculine back in, that I had integrated it. And I started receiving messages several times in a row, very close together, about how there had been a divine union within me of the masculine and the feminine, that I had finally found that balance. And I was really proud of that. That was really freaking hard work, like to the level of it would take me forever to try to explain how difficult that was with all of that trauma. First to unpack the trauma of the feminine, and then to go all the way to the feminine, and then have to unpack the trauma of the masculine and have to bring that back in. So it was a lot. It was really a lot. And I think it was probably the key pieces of trauma and shadow work and healing and spiritual awakening stuff that I had to go through over the last couple of years, which I have basically deemed my 2-year long dark night of the soul, right? That's how extreme it was. And anyway, so then the realization that came in for me today was that once I realized that I had finally succeeded in reintegrating my masculine energies, and that I was so proud that I had this divine union within me, that I had this balance that I had achieved. I don't know that I necessarily got cocky, but I did get a little bit careless, and I didn't maintain the balance very well. And I started to, without realizing it, swing back into leaning too heavily on the masculine. And I was following the intuitive nudges. I was still, I was still using my divine feminine gifts and the intuitive abilities and the clair abilities that I have been coming into and been exploring and getting better with. But I started leaning too heavily on planning and structure and all of that. So I would get a nudge and then I would go way overboard in the implementation. And this sort of happened on repeat for all of the month of August. I got the nudge to drop an offer a day for my birthday month, which was really cool, and it was really fun, and it was really intense, and I amazingly did have the energy for it. But what happened was, I didn't lean into my intuition on the actual implementation part of it. I leaned on my intuition for the idea of it, but then I went into, okay, how do I make this happen? And that forcing sort of slightly more toxic masculine energy, where it was a controlling thing. So, and I will say, I've had really, really big success by being in that overly masculine energy and forcing things in the past. And so it doesn't surprise me that I fell back into it easily, that I fell back on, going so deeply into the planning and controlling of the situation that, yeah, like I made it happen. I had the outcomes that I aimed for. I maybe not like the specific dollar values that I was aiming for, but I filled seats. I sold things. I had people saying yes, like crazy, right? All the things. And that's not in and of itself a bad thing. But what did suck, what I did slip up on, was that I opened up my calendar so much, and there was no transition period from having not been super booked out and busy to suddenly being so booked out and busy that I had no time for anything else. And instead of spreading the appointments over the next several months, they're all crammed in really quickly into every available nook and cranny. And that is so much that toxic masculine of overachieving and over extending ourselves, of really getting like, okay, I want to maximize on the income that I can make. So therefore, I'm going to open the maximum number of spots that I possibly can in the smallest time frame possible. And so I literally opened up every slot I thought that I could possibly handle. And I didn't honestly think that I was going to fill them all. But I did kind of hope that I would, in a sense. And then I ended up filling them. And all of a sudden it was like, well, shit. Now I'm extremely busy going from 0 to 100. And I did it all at sale prices and free giveaways and, all of these things. And so it's not that I'm not making money. And actually I have doubled my income from August for September, like month to date. So like I'm doing well with it financially. It's not that it didn't work. It did work. The problem is that I didn't do it from this balanced place. And I could have opened up that many spots spread out over several months and started different offers later and just been pre-selling them, or like there were different ways that I could have gone about it. And if I had slowed down enough to check in with my intuition every step of the way and to really keep or maintain that balance between the masculine and the feminine, I would have had a much smoother transition into being booked out, right? Versus it being so overwhelming. And what ended up happening was, I have been, over the last few years, I've been learning about working with my energetic cycles. And there are certain times in the month where women are legitimately so drained because their body is going through this huge transformation. And I hit that window, and I do know that for myself, normally when I'm in balance, I have a very short window of not having the energy to do things and not being able to function well and all of that. And I'm um it's funny because like literally a few days ago I was talking about it and being like sort of proud of that fact that I've gotten to the point where I schedule around my energy so much that my exhausted days are not extended. And the awareness that when I schedule properly, my exhausted days are shorter and there are fewer of them. And that's how I can have more days in a month where I have enough energy to get all the things done. So that's great. Pardon me, but uh this month, because I was just opening up every available opportunity, not paying attention to my feminine intuition and the pieces like what point in my cycle I was going to be at in a lot of these booking openings that I had set. I ended up being really extra booked out through this week where my energy is naturally lower, and I'm having to be on Zoom calls and recording and live and all of these things so much in a week where I don't want to even do that once. And so it's extra draining and it's extra stressful and all the things. And then to throw into the mix, I had a bunch of website troubles, which I'm not going to go into right now, but as soon as sort of I filled all these spots, I had these massive, and they're really big and they are very big and they are very intense, and that is legitimate. But I had these big problems with the website host and everything that I was using, and I've had to switch, and I'm literally rebuilding everything, all of my content, website, CRM, like everything, my courses, my memberships, all of it is being rebuilt from the ground up. And um, having to manually manage all of these appointments and bookings on top of the ridiculous number of bookings and also be building my website and still take care of me and my children and function like a human being and all of the things. And it really just, it wasn't working. And it isn't working. And um the enormous pressure of like, I need to get these automations running again so that I'm not having to manually do stuff, um, has made it so that I'm working in every spare second. And I'm still in that, or I still have been, I'm not now, I still have been in that very pushy, very forceful, masculine energy of do, go, achieve, achieve, achieve. And I have not been stopping enough for myself. I have been still doing my morning self-care time, but it's, minimized to the very bare minimum. And I'm not as present with it, so it's not as effective. And then I'm working till like the last minute at the end of the night instead of, my normal shutdown routine starts hours before bed. And that allows me to fall asleep and have a peaceful mind and never struggle to fall asleep and to have very restful sleep so that I can wake up early and start again the next day. I have all of these systems and routines in place that are very powerful and very balanced. And I've thrown myself off of them by being in this overachieving, over forceful masculine energy. So, today, the reason for this whole episode was, um, today really my energy probably hit its lowest point for the month, and um, or at least it was coming into that, and I had a crazy amount of calls and events and things booked for today, and I did them all. I showed up for them all, and every single one I was resentful of. And in between those calls, I was trying to force myself to function and have any brain capacity whatsoever. But at this low point in my cycle, this is where the brain fog comes in, and I'm just not thinking as clearly, and things are more difficult. And, interviews are not as effective, and I'm not as magnetic. And so, even showing up for those things, although, yes, I stuck to my word and I did the things that I said I was going to do, I was less magnetic on those interviews and calls and all of this stuff than I normally would be. So they're less effective while also crossing my energetic boundaries, right? And for myself, I'm crossing my own. And um, so just all day long, it was way too much, and I was still trying to force, and I was still trying to do, and I was still trying to accomplish. And I also have three children. And I just was like, I have had enough of you guys. I do not want you around. Like, I'm done. And same goes for my dog. And, all it was just like, I really hit that wall. And it's a wall that I would have hit in the past as well, but not understood it and forced myself through it. And it makes so much sense now to really fully understand why so many women, especially, but even men too, struggle with depression and anxiety and all of these things, because we're trying to be and do and achieve so much, and we're not respecting our energy and our boundaries and our everything. We're just trampling all over it when we're in that energy. And anyways, by the end of today, I was so angry and so miserable and so down and so low. And I literally spent like the last 2 hours um, smudging, and I did fire ceremony, and I took a salt bath, and I cleared and cleared and cleared and cleared and cleared, and just wasn't fully releasing. And I was clearing the energy in my house. I was clearing my energy. I was doing it, and it finally got to the point where I was able to see, this is why. And I was talking to Kelly, my best bestie, right? Just being like, I don't remember being this angry like almost ever. That's how angry I was today. And it came out of nowhere, it felt like, but realistically, it has been building for almost a month and a half now. While I overdid the masculine energy and I was abandoning that feminine energy in myself and not respecting and holding her, or holding that feminine energy in a protective, accepted and okay space. So obviously once we become aware of this, it's like, okay, clearly there needs to be a change. Now I have overbooked myself for this month, and I do have a monumental, massive list of things to do to get my business back to running at the capacity that it was at, where I thought that I could book out this much. So all of it is valid. All of it is something that needs to be dealt with. Spots are paid for or have been earned through giveaways and whatever. And I'm not one to go back on my word. So it was this awareness of how much I'm going to need to shut down in the in-betweens. It was an awareness of some of the really small things. And this is kind of why I wanted to do this episode, is like, here's the how of how I'm going to exit this mode. Okay. Because we all do this to ourselves, or many of us do this to ourselves anyways. Especially if we're coming from that background that I did. And so here's my plan. Some of it I have enacted already. Some of it I still need to put into action. One is that even, as a single mom with young kids, I get overextended just in that area of my life alone. And I know this, I understand it, I accept it, and I don't judge myself for it. And, all of those things I've learned, I've grown a lot over the last few years. But, one thing that I wasn't admitting to myself or really to anyone else was that even though I have days where my kids are gone to their dads or to my mom's or, whatever, and I actually do get the time without them here. And even though my youngest started school this September, I am really resentful of having this puppy who is very needy and demanding still. He's very energetic and he's whiny when his kids leave him, and he just sort of consistently whines the whole time when they're gone. And I know that he does this to other people too when I leave and leave him with someone else. And he's like, I love him to death and he's a huge sweetheart and all of this, but I was really starting to feel resentful of him and angry with him because there was never a time that I was alone. There was never a time that I got to actually turn off and not be beholden to somebody, right? Not need to feed someone else and let someone else out to go to the bathroom or help them with the bathroom or, anything like that. Like, just really be free of responsibility for a day other than to myself. And, I didn't want to admit that because it's like, this is my puppy. He loves me to death. I love him to death. He's the sweetest, all these things. And I just don't want to say something like that. And, so, and there's really no option as far as someone else to watch him or, all of these things without me having to like hire a dog sitter and go somewhere else or, all of these things. So I have just been dealing with that and suffering through that for so long now, where I just never ever got silence and never ever got that break. And so one of the things that I decided to implement as a solution, and it really took it getting this bad for me to realize that I needed a solution like this. But I had the idea to like we've had dogs in the past who slept with the kids and loved it, and the kids loved it, and it was great. And this puppy is very attached to me and very much my dog. And that's because my kids leave, right? He's here with just me. So I'm the only constant. And so he sleeps in my bed. He is with me like every minute of every day. He comes for every car ride, and all of these things. So um and he's a big dog. For anyone who doesn't know, he's a big dog, big breed. So having him around me and in my energy and demanding of me every minute of every day ever is of course just as exhausting as having kids every day ever as a single mom. And so so what I've decided to do is have him sleep one night a week with my oldest daughter. It will probably take some adjusting because he's used to sleeping with me. But she is old enough that, if he's really whiny or if he needs to go out or something, she's capable of handling that and taking over that for one night, and, it not needing to be on me for one night. So I'm going to aim to have him sleep with her one night a week so that I have one night where I get to sleep uninterrupted without another needy being touching me, curled up beside me, breathing on me, any of the things. And I get to really disconnect from having to be on. Um, and and I have been starting to more deliberately lately, like I'll kennel him while I go drive or while I'm gone somewhere for a little bit. So that I can have silence in the car. like there's and It feels selfish to me because I'm like, well, he could be with me. There's no reason not to, but there is a reason, and it's my sanity. And I have been too much in that energy of, nope, I have to accomplish it all. I have to be all of it for everybody all the time again. And so this whole episode, I did all this clearing of my energy. I got into bed. I'm alone in my bed. The dog is with my oldest daughter, and I laid down and I was like, damn, like I need to capture this, because I know that I'm not the only one. And I know that, this one little idea, I also rescheduled. I had a call booked for the morning tomorrow while my youngest is at school. She's only gone for a couple of hours a day. And I just said, like, no, hard no. I need to stop, and I need to not even work during that time, let alone be on a call. I just need to reset and come back to calm and back into myself. And so I sent the message tonight saying I need to reschedule for tomorrow. And I have a few other ones that I am going to reschedule. I may need to open up different spots that are on better energetic times of the month and move some things around, and it might be a little bit of a pain in the ass, but I know that I'm capable of it. And I know that if I take it one day at a time and I slow down a little bit and I lean into my intuition, my spirit team is perfectly capable of finding magical solutions that work for everybody, and guiding me to which appointments to switch that are going to be the most impactful to give me the space to breathe and to heal and to refill my cup so that I'm not living in this angry, overwhelmed, anxious sort of energy. Because now that I have experienced not being in that energy, which I was for years, now it is absolutely unacceptable to me to be in this energy. And I think that's why I got so angry today, because it was just like, this is not how I live my life anymore, and I don't accept this, right? And I was also, beating up on myself for mentally for feeling that way, that like that I was feeling overwhelmed, that I was feeling angry, that I was like, this is not okay. I shouldn't be reacting like this. I should be accepting and loving every minute of the amazingness of this. I'm booked out. How incredible. I've made all these sales. How incredible. You know, my kids are all three in school now and I get time off from kid mode every single day. How incredible. All these things are really good in and of themselves, but I sort of destroyed it for myself. And then it was like, oh, I don't deserve to get to feel angry and anxious and depressed about this because I did it to myself. And it just is such a perfect example of how twisted the toxic masculine and the toxic feminine, the imbalanced versions of both of those really are for us, and how far they can take us and how quickly. Because you know, before August, I was in this really balanced energy as far as the feminine and masculine went. So, um, you know, this episode, I guess the point is, number one, to be aware, to notice when you're going too far off onto one side and to bring yourself back before it gets out of hand. And then also to really, when you realize that you've done it, because we all do and we're human and, you know, whatever, not only are we needing to give ourselves some grace around that, but we also, we really need to take a look at, okay, well, what can I fix now? And it can be small things like getting the dog to sleep with the kid one night a week, just so that we can come back to ourselves and who we really are and what our energy is without anyone else's energy in our little bubble. And we can turn off the signups on something. Just because we want and need money to function in our lives doesn't mean that we can not say there's nothing for sale right now and I need a break from sales because I have to do all of this manually right now and it's exhausting me. You know, for all the signups, sending out all the links, all of the emails for confirmations once they buy, like everything being manual. It's so much right now. And this feeling of, well, I've got the momentum going. I can't stop. Otherwise, it will stop. The income will stop. The yeses will stop. Well, no, screw that. They won't. And it just, it takes the realization that it's happening to then sit and look at every single piece of it. And there's going to be so much more, because I literally had these realizations in the last like hour or two, right? But there's going to be so much more that will come up. And at every step of the way, I am going to have to look and be like, okay, slow down, tune into my intuition. What should I be doing here? What can I do to make this feel better? And there's always a solution. There's always another option. And it sometimes is just something that you never thought of because you didn't slow down enough. So, you know, that's why the example of the dog, because it seems like, well, of course the dog could sleep with someone else, but no, he never ever did. And, it also seems like, well, that's an obvious solution, but it's not when you're in the thick of it and when you're feeling like everything is on you and you're the only one responsible for everything. And so taking that time to slow down and tune in and go, what can I do differently here? And it was literally, um, you know, in full honesty and vulnerability here, it was the point where I was like, I was so angry that I was angry with the dog, and the dog did nothing. Well, okay, he did do something. He chewed a hose. Like I, I was angry because I was like, now I have this other problem that I have to deal with, right? Um, but to be angry at an animal doesn't sit right. It doesn't feel right. And it was to the point where I was like, you need to take him because I do not even want to see him. I don't really want to have a dog right now. Like, I am that angry. And when I realized that I was at that level of anger and that I needed to have him be out of my space, out of my bubble, and then once he was, that's when the realization was able to come in and be like, this is one of the key factors in how overwhelmed I am right now, and I can do something about it. So I'm going to, right? And so allowing ourselves to do it, allowing ourselves to admit that we are human and need space, and that can even include space from our animals or from our children. Speaking to my moms in my audience here, right? This is something that um as moms in general, as women in general, we take on a lot of the mental load most of the time, and we feel this need to always be on and in action and um, holding everything for everybody. And it's really toxic, actually, and it's really unhealthy. So I just wanted to really dig into what that looks like in my life in this moment, because it's such a clear cut example of how it can be for people. And um, I I really wanted to, lay out those couple of examples, rescheduling an appointment or two so that I have the time to just switch off, getting my daughter to take the dog, these different choices that we can make. It is possible. And if you're feeling like this is sort of the route to go, right? This is how to start climbing your way back out of that hole that you've dug yourself, right? So I hope that that's helpful for somebody. And thank you for being here with me today, and I will talk to you guys all next time.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe to be notified of new episodes. If you really love it here and want to help spread the light, please take a moment to rate the show and leave a review. They help so much. If you love listening and want to be part of the interactive and incredible online community we're growing, make sure you click the link in the description box and join the Facebook group. I promise you it is not like other groups you've been in. Hope to meet you there soon, and I'll be talking to you next week, sending you all my love from my heartbeat to yours.